Okay, guys, I'm back. So, now it is Q&A Tuesday. I've got a lot of questions over the weekend. This was a very conversational weekend. I want to thank everybody for all of your comments, all of your questions. Thank you so much because I love the just the open dialogue of just meeting new people that are just barely starting in the field, and even veteran medical coders who are asking questions. And this is really awesome. I'm so glad. So you guys made my weekend. Because all I did was basically sort clothes over the weekend. I am pulling out my winter clothes now. So I'm putting away all my summer clothes and pulling out the winter stuff now. So it was quite a chore. I'm just going to say that. All right, so let's go ahead and dive into the questions. All right, why would a provider get an evaluation in management during the postoperative global period? Anytime the patient is in the post-op global, right? They are in that 90-day window or even the 10-day window, okay? All of the visits that are for that surgery are all covered during that time. However, if the provider is evaluating another condition that is separate from the surgery, then yes, based on their documentation, they can get an evaluation in management code. Now, sometimes it will be something very random. Sometimes it'll be because, let's just say, for example, of course, I'm always going to use orthopedics as a good example. The patient comes in and they had surgery on their knee, and let's just say they had a knee replacement, right? A left knee replacement. But they have biceps tendonitis going on in their right, okay? That's something that's completely separate, has nothing to do with that knee replacement. So depending on the provider's documentation, they could get an evaluation in management for whatever's going on, or whatever they decide to do with this patient on this day. Okay, all the factors, the usual factors go into it. Are they prescribing medication? Are they ordering additional workup? Make sure you talk with your provider, because sometimes they will say, well, I know I'm not going to get paid during this time, so I'm not going to document anything. No. You still got to document. You got to let us know what's going on. It's very important, because if a coder that is very detailed is going to be able to catch that and say, oh, something's going on here, let me look and let me make sure. And did they do the exam? Did they talk about what's going on, the history of this condition, whether it is worsening or is it stable but it needs attention and that kind of thing. So make sure that you educate your providers on that, because it's very, very important. But yes, that would be a reason that a patient could get, or a provider could get, an evaluation in management during the postoperative period. And of course, you want to make sure that you are appending the evaluation in management code with a 24 modifier, because that tells you that this is a completely separate condition that they are being seen for in the post-op period. All right. Next question. Is there a book to use to prepare for pre-employment tests? No. Technically, no, because every facility is different. I have taken pre-employment tests that were 25 questions. I have taken pre-employment tests that were 50 questions. Okay, so it really all depends on the on the facility. What happens with these pre-employment tests is because they are wanting to gauge your knowledge base. Where are you? How much do you know? Are you detailed? Those are the things that they're looking at as well. So they'll often just give you a variety of questions from a lot of different specialties, and just to see what is your thought process. Are you able to answer these questions? Are you trying? Because they'll be able to tell. A seasoned coder can tell if another coder is trying, as far as when they're looking in the book, and are they looking under the correct evaluation codes, whether it's for inpatient or outpatient, observation, ER, things like that. So those are those detailed things. You have to pay attention to detail when you are taking those pre-employment exams. That's pretty much the biggest bit of advice I can give you. Um, they're not going to expect you to not have your books with you. You will be able to have your books with you. So this is why I say it's very important to familiarize yourself with your books, the ICD-10 book and the CPT book, because you're going to be looking through these, right? And you're going to be making sure that you can reference the codes very quickly, or you can find your reference wherever you need it. The appendix are very good for looking up information as well. So don't neglect the appendix, okay? That's just my tip from me to you. All right, so the next one is, how do I know if a patient is in the post-op period? So by looking at their documentation, oftentimes, hopefully, your provider will put on there the date of surgery. So this way, you can look at the date of surgery if it says October 1st, and then the calendar is for October 25th. Clearly, if they've had a surgery, a major global surgery, a 90-day global surgery, you'll know that they're still within the post-op global. So that is one way of looking at it. Basically looking at your documentation, and if your provider is not documenting that information, then they should be counseled that this is very important, because this is your way of knowing where the patient is in the post-op time. Okay. Again, you can never ever give a provider a evaluation and management code in lieu of this post-operative 99024, because if the patient is in the global and that is the reason for the visit and that is the only thing that's going on, then that is at 99024. That is what they're going to get. They are not going to get an evaluation and management unless they are treating something else completely separate from the reason for the surgery. Okay, so please keep that in mind. This is not a game, because if you incorrectly give that provider an evaluation and management code because maybe you're getting pressure to do that, guess who has to pay for that? The patient. Okay, and not only that, it's fraud. It's fraud, because that global period covers all those visits. Okay, this is why that is very important to know. Review the surgery section in the CPT book. So this way you can understand what I'm talking about. There are many different websites that talk about this as well. And look on some of the discussion boards if you are wanting to get some more feedback about it. If you have questions, you can submit them here as well. My advice is never official, okay? But I am a veteran medical coder. I've been coding for over 10 years. And I love what I do. I constantly read. I like to do research. But I also like to reach out to new people and, of course, other veteran coders, because I think it's important that we all share the stuff that we know. That's one of the things. All right, so what is the next one? Do I have to memorize the codes from the CPT book? No. You should know the sections, though, like, broken down by each section, the musculoskeletal section, the gastro section, urology section. You should know sort of in the book where it is, okay? This way, when you're referencing the book, it'll make it a lot easier. I know for the HEMA folks, we don't tab our books when we're going to go take the test, because our books are supposed to be clean. I know with AAPC, they do allow you to tab the books when you are going to go take your exam. I have just never been in that. I've never tabbed my books. And anytime I did, afterwards on the job, it was just a sort of a pain. So I never I never messed with tabs too much. But like I said, with AAPC, I know that they allow their folks to do that, to tab the books when they're taking the exam. But for HEMA, we've always had the books, they have to be clean. So there's no tabs, at least when I went to go take the exam, there's no tabs. And that's the last I heard, there's no tabs. So I've always sort of had to know the book without the tabs, which was fine because, I was able to learn that way. So just one of those things. But yes, you just should know the general sections of the book. And I think that would be very helpful for you. Don't try to memorize them because you're just going to overwhelm yourself. But you should know the guidelines, your surgery guidelines and things like that. Those are the things that you should really know. Okay, those are the things that you should really sort of concentrate on, as opposed to individual procedure codes. Okay. All right. So the next question is, are there other tips other than study groups and flashcards for medical coding students? There's no way to shortcut learning. Okay. There's fun ways of learning, which is like I suggested before, the word puzzles. You can go online, and I'm not going to give a link in the description box because there's way too many of them. But if you put in like puzzles, free puzzles where you can make your own like crossword puzzles, excuse me, that's a good learning tool. The only thing that, I mean, it surprises people, I think, when I say to go to the library or to, read or to do flashcards, because people think these are so elementary. Now, they're elementary, yes, because they're very basic. Flashcards and reading. Okay, that's something we did in school as kids, right? But the thing with flashcards is I am a firm believer in the mind-body connection, okay? In order to memorize something or in order to learn something, like the mind and the body have to connect. And when you're writing out flashcards, that is a big thing, because your brain has to connect the pen to paper and write this stuff down. So it's easier to commit to memory. Now, that's just my opinion. If you learn some other different kind of way, I mean, that's great. But I am a strong, strong, strong advocate for books, okay? Spending time with actual physical books, not on your phone. Because I've said this before and I'll say it again. I think that phones are ruining people's communication skills. So even when they're trying to learn things on the phone or on their computer, I think it's sort of, for some people it works. And for some people, old-fashioned books, just looking at an old-fashioned book really does help. Okay, so that's my advice. The library, because it's free. And the plethora of information that you can get from the library, and it's all free. So I could spend the whole day in the library if I had my way. And I could never, ever, ever, ever be employed at a bookstore. Do you know why? Because I would essentially be a volunteer, because my entire check would go back into the bookstore. I have a very hard time. I have such a hard time with bookstores. Like, I go in the bookstore and I'm like, ooh, I said, there's all these books, and I get so excited, and so I have to control myself. It's like going into a jewelry store. Same thing. Actually, I think a bookstore is worse than a jewelry store, because a jewelry store I can be like, okay, I need to be like, I need to control myself. But with books, I'll be like, but I really need this book. And there's, like, I can justify this to myself. So I have to be very careful every time I go into a bookstore, because I will come out of there with so many books. And like I said, I just love books. So, books are very helpful. And the more time you spend reading and the more time you spend devoting time to actually sitting down and learning, the better off you'll be. But those are my suggestions. If you have another suggestion, or if you're able to learn some other way, then by all means go for it. But as somebody that's been there and done that and got a t-shirt, that's just my advice. All right. So the next question is, study guides. What kind of study guides can I get? Somebody was asking if a 2007 book would be like a learn to code book. It was a 2007 edition, if or 2006. If that was something that she could learn on. No, because that's from ICD 9 times. You want to look for a study guide that is talking about ICD 10. Okay, we are in ICD 10 times, and I believe they started those study guides like in 2014. So you might want to look, but you want to get the latest, okay? Because there's been updates, and then there's convention updates as well. So you want to make sure that you're getting the latest, as latest as you can. 2018 is pretty good, but 2019 is even better. Because especially if you're going to be studying on your own, you want to get the latest. So this way you can study what is most recent. Okay, so just try to get what you can as far as the latest version, if not the current year version, when you're looking for study guides. All right, so is that it? Yeah, I think that's it. Oh yeah, I got one more here. Okay, what do you mean? Oh, the book coding is different from real world coding. What did I mean by that? So, what I mean by book coding, like when you're a student in school, that book coding is a lot different from real world coding. I mentioned this on another video a few days ago. What I mean by that is when you're in school and you're going through these word problems that they're giving you, they're going to give you like the straightforward, like basically the textbook um, entries, so that way when you can look it up, you know what you're looking for, right? But in the real world, providers use different words and they use different ways of describing things for certain procedures. So this is why I say that it's very important to have a very big and vast vocabulary when it comes to medical terminology, or talking about procedures and things like that. Because with those things, you want to be able to know all the words that are similar, so that way in case they do use some weird off the wall description, you know what they're talking about, because they will say things that are completely different from what the book has, and sometimes it won't be as straightforward. So this is why you have to either look it up, either on the internet or in a book, or maybe you have to go to them and ask them, okay, if you can't reference it in the book, you can't reference it on the computer, what are you saying here, But you want to make sure that you are doing all of your research before you go to the provider and ask them any questions, okay? I talked about this earlier. You want to make sure that you do your homework before you go and ask your provider any questions, because you want them to know that you value their time. You value them taking the time to explain things to you. Because if you're just going to them willy-nilly and you just like, oh, well, can you give me the answer to this? They're going to get irritated. Okay? And a lot of them don't have patience for people who are just wanting the answer. They want to know that you've tried to find the answer as well. Okay. And then if there's some middle ground where there's maybe some documentation improvement that could happen, that's when, you can partner together and to be able to talk that stuff out. But you want to make sure that you're doing all the research beforehand. So, like I said, it goes back to having a good, strong vocabulary when it comes to medical terminology. Okay. And if you're just getting started, don't get overwhelmed. I had no experience with medical when I first started, so I've been in it over 10 years. This is the result of being in this for over 10 years. You have you learn things, you pick things up. So after a while, it will come to you. You just have to be patient with it and just learn things a little bit at a time. Slow and steady wins the race. Okay, keep that in mind. You don't want to burn yourself out, whatever you do. But just doing a little bit at a time and being consistent with it is the key. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up because I don't want to get too long-winded. And it is getting late, so I will see y'all for tomorrow's episode. So if you have any more questions, please submit them. I will be stockpiling them for next week's Q&A Tuesday, so I will see y'all then. But if you are a medical coder, a medical coding student, somebody curious about the fascinating world of medical coding, a provider or a nurse, I invite you to like and subscribe and follow me on my journey in medical coding. All right, I will see y'all on the next video. Bye!